Thank you, Minister, for joining us. And of course, this event is on his. So that's on skill development, from skill gaps to skill gain. And I'm really excited about this panel. So thank you for giving Women Inspiring Network this opportunity. And I have some of our esteemed panelists who've just come 24 hours into Davos. So I have Mrs. Jindal. So Mrs. Jindal, please come and sit. So she came for our inaugural event at the Shadzad, which we just finished and we came. And so she just flew in for that, and we had like 7 panel discussions there. So we had some. Yes. And I'd like to call now Miss Archana from Gates Foundation. So, yeah. And Ajaita Shah. Okay. Sorry. And Shelja. Shelja is from Dasra. Ajaita is from Frontier Markets. And of course, I can see a great audience. Some of the supporters I can see who've just come in. Oh, Divya is here. Divya is the CEO of the Sherry Blair Foundation. She was our speaker, and Ms. Blair delivered our keynote. And then we had an afternoon session, which was by Ms. Irani and closing by Ms. Shobna Kamineni. But I'm not going to take much time. I'm just going to ask the minister to talk a bit about the ministry, and then I'm just going to throw over. Yeah, I'm going to sit.
You want me to talk about?
Yeah, I want you to start and just talk about what.
So, make sure I don't have the last word today.
Yes, okay, we shall make sure.
See, I think I'm going to talk about how we address gender balance in the sense of empowering women through skilling programs. That's the mandate of today.
Yes.
We are getting better at it. See, the oldest institution we have in skilling is the ITI network, and that was built focusing towards the traditional kind of manufacturing industries and trades. It is still very popular. It is well respected. If you have an ITI certificate diploma, which you've done over 2 years, you've done a course, it has a value in the marketplace. But women candidates are still few and far between. To boost that number, we have a reservation. Many states have reserved seats for ITIs. Beyond the ITI, above the ITI lies the NSTI network. There's 33 in the country. That is where we churn out our trainers and instructors who will then go to an ITI and teach. So the Craftsman Instructor Training Scheme, that's what it's called. Out of the 33 NSTIs, we churn about 50,000 every year, trainers. 19 are women only. So that's where now we are churning out good numbers, and hopefully when the trainers are women, you get better numbers of students in the ITI network. Our flagship short-term scheme of PM-KVY, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, there women participation is much better. In the PM-KVY 4, it's actually crossed 50% of the beneficiaries are women. Some of our other schemes that we run in conjunction with ministries like the Tribal Ministry or even the WCD Ministry, we run a new initiative which will be launching sometime this month when I get back. That's also obviously focused purely on women. Vishwakarma scheme, which is a scheme which is run by MSME, us and Finance, 3 ministries working together. And that's looking at the ancient sort of practice of crafts in villages. 30 lakh was the target over 3 years, and close to 20 lakh I think have already registered, maybe even more, and more than 10 lakh have been trained. There I think it's more than 60% beneficiaries are women. So overall, if you include everything, I think women participation would be close to 50, if not more than 50%. But of course, many more things need to be done. Our Prime Minister talks about women-led development, and we need women in leadership positions, not just entry level. And there's a clear sense that at every sector, every government initiative, there's now more of a focusing on how we can include more women to take part in that particular scheme. I'd probably say that and then leave I shouldn't be saying too much on this panel anyways.
No, of course we want your thoughts. But Mrs. Jindal, I'm going to ask you, what are the challenges which women joining the workforce in India face when they're planning to join? And if you can throw some light, and maybe the minister would be able to take some notes on it, and maybe we can all sit and think of a solution.
I believe that women have always been in the workforce because they run the families, but it's they never paid for that. So it's unpaid domestic work. But of course, with more and more awareness now, things are changing, but we are still fighting for equal wages. Since 2017, there has been a significant increase in the women workforce in India. But what worries me is that it's still at 24%, whereas the global average is 47%. So like the minister said, many schemes have been done by the government of India, and because of that things are changing. But there are so many other things that need to be done. And I'd just like to point out here that gender inclusion programs is very important. More and more women should be, allowed to participate in each and every way. And the other thing that I'm very concerned about is also that gender budgeting should be taken into account, because only 5% of India's budget is allocated towards women-focused initiatives. So I think this budget should increase in fair measure to support more women-focused initiatives. And thirdly, the recognition and compensation of domestic work. I think the government of India should definitely work on that. And also challenging patriarchy, which is a cultural and mindset change, and of course, digital empowerment. I think these are the issues, if the government can work on, it would really benefit the women workforce in India. Thank you.
So thank you, Mrs. Jindal, for sharing those thoughts.
Can I just respond?
Yes.
Because I think the labor force participation data doesn't actually capture the full story. Like you said, women work in the household, they work in the farm. Most of the animal husbandry work in villages is actually done by the women. In fact, as an anecdote, I can tell you that the kind of farmer households that used to keep a cow or a couple of buffaloes today, that's declining, because the young girls who are coming in as wives to the sons, they don't want to do that work anymore. So therefore, that's the real stories that farmers say, that इसलिए हम नहीं रख रहे, बहू नहीं तैयार थी. But that just shows you that how much work is being done by women. So that figure is actually not accurate. And the second point that you said, that budgeting also, I don't think you can't just take WCD ministry ka budget. You'll have to include other parameters, and that figure will also be commensurate, I think, with what you are asking for in terms of population. And I don't think the figure will be much below than what you're asking for. Around 40% plus hoga figure. Budgeting for women.
And I'm going to ask now Ajaita Shah. She's the founder and CEO of Frontier Markets. And she's also a Schwab awardee from last year. And Frontier Market has empowered rural women. So since you were talking about that, that's why I, of course, came back to you. And how rural women have become micro-entrepreneurs, and what lessons can other sectors learn from your approach to enable these women out there?
Yes, so first of all, I'm just so grateful that we're having this panel, and really grateful. I have to say that this is my third Davos. So last year I represented India globally as the first gender champion of the world. And every year we've announced incredible new initiatives where India is at the forefront. And I think it's really important for us to take that moment. I think, Sarah, all the initiatives that you talked about, I'm going to add the element of a few others, right? Startup India, huge. Invest India, bringing in capital, big to make entrepreneurs like myself be seen. We just celebrated National Startup Day, literally a week ago, and I was the first winner for women startups because we put rural women at the forefront. And I think that the learning that I had in terms of what we need to do is I think we need to change the narrative. We need to stop talking about the challenges and just actually flip this and talk about the opportunities. And we need to start looking at women not as bicharis, but I need to start looking at them as actually the solvers of the world. And I think that's the approach that we took when we looked at rural India. Bharat India today is 800 million people, 700,000 villages, and fundamentally they are making money. There's internet access, there's Aadhaar, there's 100 things that makes India so interesting of being the feeders of the world, who are people today that want access to services where they live, right? Today, it's interesting that all of us probably use Amazon or TikTok or all the things that we do. Why can't a rural Indian person living in a tier 6 town have access to the same thing? What we found was the clencher though, was that we believe that rural India, because of who they are, we have to be responsible. We have to be accountable of the kind of inputs we put in, which means you can't just sell any random product. Because if that rural customer is unhappy, trust me, the entire gaon is gonna find out and you're done. Like, aap chale jao. So women at the center of all of this was huge. Today there's 15.7 million small women businesses in India who are running a kirana or a beauty parlor or a cosmetic shop or a tailoring company, etc., who are not seen or known. What we did was we said, we see you, let's train you, let's give you the digital inputs that you need. Let's also recognize that your asset is not just that you know how to sell things. Your asset is your trust. You know things. And people listen to you if you ask the right questions. So today, 35,000 women entrepreneurs on a digital platform are the Meri Saheli malls of the country that are literally giving services in digital banking, agri-service, etc., to almost 10 million families in rural India. That's a market. So my learning, I think, and my encouragement, and not, when I say it's a market, why? One, we were able to bring in CSR money to actually work with partners that are incredible, that are Indian CSR money, which I again give credit to our 2% rule, to actually invest in these women's capability to get there. But second, we were able to then demonstrate that. And now today you have companies outside of it, like global companies, whether it's a Hewlett-Packard, whether it's a Samsung, et cetera, that are paying to actually access this market. So we have to see this in a different lens. Skills is something that of course is required. Investments are required. The right thinking is required. But also let's recognize that if you do it, you build markets in a really big way that you can become role modeling for the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Can I just say something? I think the self-help group has had a huge impact in forming collectives, giving them access to financing. One aspect of skilling and in the new age with new technologies coming in also poses new challenges. India is doing very well on women's participation in STEM. It's about 42-43%. It could be the highest in the world. But I think if AI comes in, there are concerns that I've heard in various forums that who is actually the developer and who's making the algorithm that's going to give out the product, the end result, the answer to the queries put in. Will that be representative of a diversified society, of women, or gender issues, other kind of issues? So I think that there also India has taken a certain stand in leadership, that we have a national strategy on AI, and we're talking about data sets, the importance of that, removing algorithm bias, and having our own data, having our own open source models to work out solutions for our own problems. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now I'm going to come to Ms. Vyas, Archana Vyas. Of course, she's Director, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Director Policy.
Director Policy. So your work, of course, spans over gender equality, financial inclusions, and digital public infrastructure. And how can we leverage these pillars and build a robust ecosystem for women to upskill and drive the workforce participation in India?
Yeah, thanks, and thanks to Deep for having me. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be on this panel. As Honorable Minister spoke earlier, that global averages when it comes to women labor force participation is around 43 to 47%. India is growing. It is at 33%, but if you disaggregate that number, about 20% of them are actually self-employed, and then you have another 6-7% as casual labor, and then you have the salaried people. So first of all, just the swath or the big number of self-employed as well as casual labor, if you skill them, what's going to happen? If you skill them, which means better productivity and more income. So it is really important, and we'll talk a little bit in terms of this segment of self-employed women, which is also your self-help group, etc. And if you skill them, then the impact on countries' GDP through skilling is going to be extremely significant. The second thing that I would say is that women do fall off the labor force, right? We know it is marriage, we know it is care responsibilities, they do
90 hours work.
Yeah. But
wait, what's 24? 20 multiplied by 7, that's right.
So, and we had done research in about 5 states, and we'd understood from women in terms of what would they require, and the biggest challenge is skilling. They say skill us, and out of skilling, the highest demand is digital skilling. So the question that you raised in terms of digital skills and digital financial inclusion and DPI, what can that entail? Digital skilling will get more and more women back into workforce, more and more young girls back into workforce, and which is also what Ajaita has spoken about in terms of the entire marketplace is digital, right? It enables faster economies for women. So 2-3 statistics. One, in terms of digital financial inclusion, India has been absolutely stellar when it comes to digital public infrastructure. The fact that Aadhaar is universal. Everybody has an identity. I have an identity. A woman in village has an identity. A young girl in village has an identity. You're no longer hidden. And the other catalytic thing has been Jan Dhan, which is like giving bank accounts to everybody. So and these bank accounts are digital bank accounts. So digital bank accounts and identity has really meant that the financial gap, there is no gap in terms of access to finance for women today. It's about 79% men, it is about 78.6% women. Access is there. Yes, usage is an issue, but access is there, which means that structurally what's available today for women is that they can access finance. What happened during COVID? More than 200 million women got direct benefit transfer into their bank accounts because structurally it was possible. The second thing that extremely wonderful about Indian government and the DPI is the fact that the data is disaggregated when it comes to financial inclusion. You can identify a woman, you can identify a man, and that's why more and more benefits are being given to women in the name of a woman so that she can progress, right? The finances comes to her, she's got the agency, she can disperse it the way that she wants to. Now coming to skilling, I would say that one, that you have to understand how the market is organized. The market is organized more self-employed. Give them more credit, give them access to market, and if you skill them more, which is also human aspect beyond finances and market, which is about mentoring, training, networking, which makes business grow, is when they will get more and more economically empowered, and economy grows. 50%. And yesterday I heard a beautiful thing. You say DEI, women are diverse. We are 50% of the population.
Yeah.
It's not diversity.
51% in India.
Yeah. So we're 50, but so it's just strange that we still said, okay, you will add diversity. We are population, by the way. We're not diverse. Diversity. We are the population. Anyway,
I love it.
Yeah. And more skilling will make them better growth custodians and propellers of growth for the economy, that's an area that we work in. For us, our gender equality division, real focus. One of the pillars of we focus on women's health, but one of the biggest pillar is economic empowerment. Again, working very closely with the NRLM, which is the self-help group, which is fantastic organization. 100 million or 120 million women who can, if skilled well, can generate better incomes. Thanks.
Your thoughts, Minister?
No, we are running schemes looking and working with those SHGs as well. And even EDP programs, the entrepreneurship development programs, are run through our system. And there also you'll find that women are perhaps a larger percentage of the beneficiaries than men are. So maybe we are the diversity here today.
So, and Shailaja, I'm just going to ask you, you're of course Director Dasra, and you have initiatives like your 10 to 19, the Adolescents Collaborative, and how is Dasra preparing young women and girls to overcome systematic barriers and enter the workforce with relevant skills?
Thanks. Thank you for having me on this panel. A lot of you have quoted data, so I'll move beyond that. But I think a lot of the work that Dasra has done, of course we work with women in leadership, and I'll come to that, is working with adolescent girls, right? It's a time where you're entering puberty, everybody knows all of this information. I see a lot of Indian faces here, that's the time where girls are susceptible to kind of, dropping out of school, workforce, etc. I think one of the things I wanted to bring in here is, while we're talking about education, skilling, workforce, India has the largest population and we have the largest population of young people. So first of all, I feel a huge responsibility for not just what we're going to be contributing to ourselves as a country, but to the world in a skilled workforce. I think the potential that India has with its young people is to have this human capital to transform and take everything that India has globally. That's going to be a real opportunity, and so it's energizing, it's exciting in terms of what we're going to do. However, just coming to a little bit of the nuances is, we have to think about sexual reproductive health as it relates to entering the workforce. We have to understand sanitation, facilities for women, migrant women workers, how they are treated as they enter the workforce. So we run something called the Social Compact, which is amazing because, if you look at what happened during the pandemic when you saw hordes of migrants taken to the streets, we actually got business owners coming to us and saying, we can't stand for this and we want to work, and as businesses, we will have better worker facilitation centers. And since the pandemic till now, it's been successful enough that the companies have taken it over themselves and are running it as inherent kind of policy and mandates. But just to say that, we have to look at they're digitally connected, but who are we leaving behind? How are we ensuring that mental models, behaviors, some of the gender biases are accounted for? I have to mention that we should also look at small and big aspects of violence, broaching, especially in the digital world. I heard my panelists speak about that. Divya mentioned that. I think just that's going to be our last mile of really transforming women, girls coming into the workforce. I think the third thing I will say is aspirations. Minister Ji, you spoke about the daughter-in-laws not wanting to continue to do the kind of historic work that the families have been doing maybe. But I think there is this cultivating of aspiration, which doesn't have to be that if I'm educated then I want a banking job, right? There is a lot that can be done in the places where they are. A lot of the girls and the aspirations that they have are right now influenced by some of these success stories that are maybe kind of one-offs. I think we need to tell the stories of everyday changes that a girl is making in her life, in her family, and taking the onus of working and being that first working woman and girl also, and making that kind of attractive and lucrative as well. And lastly, I'll say I agree with the point on women in leadership. While there's so much work that is continuing to be done to get women into the workforce, I think we need the pull-up factor of how are we ensuring that women are in decision making and in terms of influencing roles. Should it be philanthropy? Should it be business? Should it be government? Is a good actually indicator, it exists there. But in all other realms, especially to ensure that they're not just the front, but they're actually taking the decision that they're meant to do.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly say one thing just to make all of us happy about this is, so we work, the SAG women we know are the most strongest, and that's where actually your 15.7 million women businesses also were able to access the initial financing to even set up the shops in the first place. But you know, when their daughters that are 14 years old are suddenly getting access to English education, etc. Do you know the top, so we did this with our 40,000 women, so they each have like 2 daughters, around 14 to 20. Do you know the top 2 jobs they want? IAS officer and police officer.
That's amazing.
Can I just on the positive side, and women in non-traditional roles, how you talk about making it aspirational, just a case study. Do you know who topped the entire ITI network that I spoke about earlier in a trade like, motor mechanic, motor vehicle mechanic. It's a 2-year course. The topper was a girl from Barabanki, Purnima Avasthi. Because I gave her the certificate. And there were many women like that doing courses and they're doing well.
So I can see all the women from different nationalities all nodding. So that's our success story of India. Of course, Mrs. Jindal, I'm going to come back to you. Will Skill Gain plug in the skill gap, help bring women into the workforce?
I can speak on behalf of the Jindal Foundation here that in the Jindal Foundation we run a range of training programs from healthcare to agriculture, but our signature campaign is skill development. And yes, we do. But because today you're here, so I'm going to speak about.
You know who the brand ambassador for NSDC is? No. It's Preeti Pal, the para who won 2 medals.
Yes.
So I made her the ambassador. So NSDC is like, we don't have any ambassadors, let's just make one. So she's our only brand ambassador.
It's wonderful to hear. So skill development is one of our signature campaigns, and through that we're also supporting the Government of India's Skill India mission. And I'm really proud to say here that the minister here is doing a wonderful job as the skill development minister, because I keep hearing from our president of the Jindal Foundation how collaborative efforts are being done between the government as well as the foundations, the privately owned foundations.
Good to know. You can tell me the truth later.
And of course, Ajaita, I'm going to come back to you. So you lead the She Leads Bharat program, and it's on 1 million women entrepreneurs. So why don't you throw some light on that?
Yeah, so again, stemming off the beautiful infrastructure that's already built in rural India. Again, this is why Archana and I always look at each other, because we've been probably thinking about this forever, for 20 years now. But when you have 100 million women that are part of the self-help group infrastructure, they today, yes, have access to a bank account, yes, have access. So I'm going to piggyback on why She Leads Bharat has become what it is, because to Archana's point, while access to finance is technically available to these women, if they don't have a business that they can actually learn how to breed or run, they won't actually want that finance. And if they don't take that finance, they're not going to make their money. And if they don't make their money, we all know the cycle that happens. So we realized that partnering with government, so we partnered with UPSLRM, Rajasthan government, now Bihar Jivika, like all across, where we said, what can we do to bring in our skilling of understanding what it means to be a digital dukaan, घर के द्वारा हर लोगों के लिए सब चीज़ों के लिए 15 मिनट की दूरी में, right? It's my favorite phrase. And how do we bring that to where that we can fill that gap? Because then, if you skill her in tech, you give her the tech system, you also bring her the market linkages, but you also position her as the Saro, we call it Saro Jivan Saheli, the easy life creator in her village. Everything changes. And so what's happened is this tech platform now brings in education, skills, financial literacy, everything in one spot for a tech system for women. And we suddenly realized that like every government wanted us to do this. They said, hello, hamare bhi SAG mahilaएं, like aa jao, come. And so we said, can we build a big different vision? So instead of saying that we have 35,000 women, we said in the next year, let's make it 100,000. In the next 2 years, let's make it 1 million. But these million women entrepreneurs that are digitally savvy, amazing voices for the masses that are skilled are also role models, and ultimately are touching 100 million lives in Bharat India, where Bharat India becomes the voice of change. So can you imagine we start thinking about tackling all the, I'm just looking at these like things, when we're tackling things like how do we solve climate change? Ask 100 million women farmers to do regenerative farming and teach them the skill to make that happen. It's a beautiful thing that what India can make happen. So vision of She Leads Bharat is that. So we said by 2030, we want 1 million women digitally trained on a platform that will be the voices of 100 million women who will have skills in a really important way that will change the lives of the world. But also most importantly, we become the amplified model for the Global South. And just so you know, sir, we've already trained 5 countries, 5 country organizations in Jaipur who came for a week to spend time to understand the tech, and now Nigeria, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Myanmar, and Kenya have entrepreneurs that are actually replicating the She Leads Bharat movement.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come to you, Shailija, because I'm going to ask Archana the last question of the day. So Shailija, how can philanthropy and collaborative action are central to your work? How can partnership between corporates, non-profits, governments accelerate the skilling of women in India?
That's a tough question. I think the answer is everybody should just collaborate, right? But it's easier said than done. I think it requires facilitation. It requires coming together of minds, agendas, boards, influencers, putting kind of money where your mouth is in a sense. I think we've seen that, so in the 10 to 19 Adolescents Collaborative, we had 21 funders from foundations to family philanthropies to individuals come together and believe in the mission of looking at health and well-being and successful transition of adolescents to adulthood. And what that enabled is that we were able to go to the government. In this case, we worked across Jharkhand and the Ministry of Health, and we were able to go with a single specific mandate, right? So just to share an anecdote, what happens is different NGOs come to a particular department, everyone will send their own minutes of meeting, everyone has their own agenda. The poor government person at the front line is also confused as to who and what to figure out, where to, who to work with. I think the idea is to say that everybody wants to be impactful, but there are certain aspects of, just practically what has translated into the development sector where there is, a lot of fractures and fractions. The idea is to say that if we all believe in the same mandate, is it possible to come together? And I'm not going to say anymore without egos and logos. I'm going to say with everybody's logo on the backdrop and keeping everyone's ego and ensuring that everybody feels happy and, gets the attention. How do you actually then go and work with different stakeholders, keeping impact in mind? And we are able to do it if you have a facilitator whose job is to do that. And really that's what we hope to do. Indian philanthropy is going to skyrocket, right? We're growing as a country, we're emerging as a philanthropic community, and the diaspora is starting to give across in a fantastic way. So you have this power, but what you don't want it to be is ineffective. What you don't want it to be is inefficient and get the reputation that Indian philanthropy doesn't work. You don't want business to do things that are not going to ultimately take India to the next level. The idea is that you have to come together, but you have to put in work to come together, and there is a lot of negotiation and facilitation that an expert can do. And so please be in those conversations and submit to that, because what we can do together is going to be phenomenal, is what we believe in.
I'm really happy that you brought in that point, especially about the logo and the egos. That's really important.
I used to say no logo, no ego, and everybody used to say ha ha ha, very good. But now I've realized no, it is, let's have all our logos and let's just do it.
You know how political alliances are done. Politicians are very careful on these things. You need no politicians in your mix in your team.
So no logos and egos for you is what you're saying.
When you do an alliance, you gotta have your brands and your issues always out there and work collectively.
So we have, we're really impressed. So I've come to the last question of the day, and then if it's okay, can we ask the audience if they'd like to ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Maybe Divya, you can think of the question. I'm going to put the mic on you. And Stacey, you can ask next. She was at the Clinton Global Initiative. That's where I met her. And she's just come all the way just to meet me today. In the afternoon, after the event was over. But yeah, so in your experience, what role does public-private collaboration plays in addressing these skill gaps, especially amongst women, particularly in rural and marginalized communities?
Few examples come to mind. One I would say, as a private philanthropy, what is it that we are doing? As I mentioned, that we work very closely with the Ministry of Rural Development, NRLM, because that's the biggest platform. And what we realized, and our work with SHGs goes back to the work that we've done, starting from health, like using SHG platform to improve women's health. That was the genesis of our work, and then we got into economic empowerment later. So what we've realized working with SHGs is the fact that women, while it is kind of microfinancing, and they come together, collect the money together to grow that money, they are extremely good in terms of paying back, extremely good. However, they don't have a credit history because it's a group history, right? And everything was, is recorded on paper, like it happens across our public system. We're helping NRLM digitize their records. So, and even taking some of the historic records and digitizing them, which means that you will have a credit history for these women, and they can move out of being group entrepreneurs to being a single entrepreneur as well, because that's what the financial system wants. They want credit history, and of course you have to go with the bankers, and you have to reform the banking system as well when it comes to women, because either they won't have collaterals, or you have to be innovative in terms of financing that needs to be made available to women. So one of the roles as a private philanthropy, okay, we can come in with innovation and we can help you with that innovation, right? So one of the roles that we can play. The second role that normally philanthropy or private sector plays is, demonstrating certain results. You have risk capital, either from CSR, or you have risk capital as a philanthropy, and you can take certain risks that the governments would not. You prove that proof of concept, and therefore help governments scale up those programs. So, within the skilling perspective, we're working with Indian philanthropy, with Mahindra's. There's a program that we're launching together. It's called Kabil, which is about skilling girls, because one of the problem that especially the private sector would come back to you is we don't have, you say we don't have women across leadership, where's the pipeline, right? So together we are skilling about, the ambition is over the period of next 3 to 5 years, 1 million girls will be skilled, and you match them with the corporate sector so that they can get jobs as well. So it is very placement linked, it is very result oriented, and you co-opt the corporation or organization in terms of what skilling that they would require, so that there is a pipeline. It's not like you're generating a pipeline and then you look for people to take that source of talent. So you're doing it collaboratively so that they get jobs as well, and they are the ones who can come and skill, because that's the kind of skilling that's required, right? So that's what we are doing with Mahindra. Then with Reliance, there is a program again with an ambition of 1 million women, which is about skilling and providing better better opportunity of growth to especially FPOs, women in farmer producer organization. There's so many women in agriculture, and that's like a big potential area in terms of working in states so that they can get better incomes. But lastly, I would say is care economy. We haven't spoken about that. That's a big area in terms of why women are at home, because they're taking care of either adults or children, etc. So again, what are the care models that can work in rural India as well as in urban India, so that corporates can come forward and design those care models, which is like either creches or mobile creches, or what are the models available, so that the woman can easily and with great confidence be able to send the child and go out and work as well, right? So And these are ways in which women can be economically empowered, because skilling leads to economic empowerment, right? And therefore, corporates can, you can have skilling program, you can have care economy program, and especially on care, there is huge literature. There's, a big report that's coming from World Bank. We've supported them across many countries, and what you're learning is the fact that it has one of the best ROIs in terms of if you give care facility to a woman, you can really get your economy going up. And in India, there is statistics that's available, 2% invested behind care economy, 11 million jobs will open up, 70% of them will be taken by women.
I think World Bank said 6.8% GDP impact if you have 50% women.
Judy, I have a PSA.
Yes, please ask a question.
It's more a PSA. Can I make a PSA?
Yes,
Yes. So, Minister, such a
आपकी गाड़ी
pleasure.
नंबर 4
इन्वेस्टिगेशन से जाने वाली वो नहीं एक्चुअली नहीं हमारा अनाउंसमेंट काफी सिमिलर गाड़ी चल रही है गेट ऑन बोर्ड so building on that, my name, by the way, Minister, nice to or pleasure to meet you. My name is Seema Chaturvedi and I'm founder and managing partner of a gender equity fund called Achieving Women Equity, so Achieve All Funds. So a little brag and then the PSA. We are the only fund in Asia to have received funding from USAID supported program called Climate Gender Equity Fund, which is supported by Visa Foundation, UPS, Reckitt, Skoll, and we're delighted because we're driving gender equitable climate action. The PSA now, two things. One, just 2 days ago we announced the first of its kind fellowship for women in investing, and we're very excited about that because fundamental in all of this is the fact that less than 10% of wealth is controlled, as in directed by women, and we're trying to change that at the capital allocator level, which is very fundamental. Jiski lathi uski bhains. That's what we're going after. And the second thing, so that's an announcement we're going to be opening up on March 8th, and we launched it. We'd love to invite you. Second, and we'll be in India. Second announcement is, to everybody's point, we, through the foundation, we've launched a digital financial literacy program, which is building on the work that we've done with the US State Department in helping women entrepreneurs, predating a lot of new initiatives where we were working with women in 20 states. And these women are we've worked with Tata, Google, etc., Angutha Chap women who are now exporting their products to US. And we're trying to now bring that digital literacy.
Digital literacy is offline? Is it blended? How are you going to deliver the course?
It's very much online and offline both. And what we have is a paid forward model. So we intervene at a level where we can teach, somebody can take what we have to offer, break it down, disaggregate it and pay it forward. And that model works beautifully. So those are the two PSAs. Would love to invite collaboration, would love to invite the ministry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Please.
That's Seema Chaturvedi. She was going to be on our panel, but she couldn't be there.
Are you from
I'm from Mathura. Divine.
Great. Now whatever you ask for, I can't say no.
अच्छा मोदी जी ने भी यही कहा था वैसे.
वैसे MP था ना मैं.
Any other questions? Divya is going to ask us anything?
Sahelis are in Mathura.
Okay, Divya is going to ask. She's the CEO of the Sherry Blair Foundation, so she's going to ask us a question.
Do we need? I think we need to send them.
Last one.
Bye.
Good afternoon, thank you. I'm Divya O'Connor, the CEO of the Sherry Blair Foundation for Women. I'm from Chennai, I grew up in Chennai, but I've been out of India now for 25 years living in London. And what really strikes me from listening to all of you is that there are so many models, successful models with such great outcomes in India, some of which I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with the Jan Dhan bank accounts and Women's World Banking work in that space. But I've also been in lots of conversations in kind of global forums, in Reykjavik Global Forum and the UN CSW forums, and here Davos as well. And what is occurring to me is that when there are models, like the one that you've just described, Rita, that work, how can we, instead of just trying to replicate and reinvent the wheel, how can we actually promote those models into various other countries across the world so that they can be adopted and adopted successfully. And that is something that I think, you know, you and I should definitely connect later and speak about.
Can I, because I would love to bring that piece in terms of the work that I've been doing. So I don't know, Minister, if you know that, so I'm a South Asia advocate for the UN Commission Trade and Development work, so UNCTAD. This is the first year ever in 5 years that South Asia was the focus for the Australian and Swedish government's investment to bring 25 digital women entrepreneurs from South Asia. So Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. We hosted it in Delhi. And we brought 25 of these women together for a master class to start learning from each other, with each other. But what it took, to your point, Divya, it took trust to like understand how to bring these women in. It took pipeline to figure out who they are and are they ready. It took funding to figure out whether or not we can actually afford to bring them all there for that week. But it also took government to actually take a leadership role on saying, and so we had Niti Aayog and all the folks that were there, but also we had the UN. We needed to Shetra's point, with logos and egos, everyone there to come together and collude. But I think the most important piece is we need a champion. And in my mind, I think that ideally the ministry is the champion of this so that we can then figure out how to collaborate.
So we're going to be doing more roundtables in your ministry with all these women out there and more global women.
And
India
need that
structure in place.
You need the structure in place. You need the champion in place.
You know, I had 5 buas, I had 2 sisters, and I have 2 daughters. So I'm very comfortable.
So we're doing all this, and Swati, you'll have your hands full. And all the global women, not just Indian women, we have to put them together. So that's the change which we need to create. And India is going to lead it.
India will lead it. I think India can lead it.
India will lead it.
But when I say she leads Bharat, we also started she leads the world, right? And ultimately, but I think that we need, to your point, how do we get the collaboration? Because Cherie Blair obviously works globally, but we need to then be able to get a champion. So, are you ready to? You're ready to be the champion?
I signed up years ago.
And Stacey is from Switzerland, and please, and I in the United States.
Yeah, thank you very much to the panel, and thank you very much, Didi, for hosting us, and fully agree with you. That's my thought as well. So I work with Massimo. We're a worldwide med tech company focused on monitoring. We're thrilled to work with the Gates Foundation on maternal and newborn health survival, and that's where I spend most of my time. I'm fortunate to have a team based in Bangalore. You know, I see around the world, the 4th largest, 2nd largest, you have the world's largest women's population. You are the leading women's population in the world. Mm-hmm. And right now, countries like the US and the UK have rising rates of maternal mortality and rising rates of newborn mortality. So working on what you're working on is definitely scalable to address that, not only the words you said, but also the courage to say, India's not stepping up, India is leading. So women in tech, women in digital, you are world leaders, and to show how to empower the rural community in agriculture. Agriculture workers are going down in Switzerland. It's a major issue. In Canada, it's a major issue where I'm from. And women in tech in other countries are actually declining. Women's rights are declining. So the ability to be a leader and to say, we're taking a pole position, not to solve for India, but to solve for the world, that the world's largest country, the world's largest demographic of women, and the world's leading power in leapfrogging the Western infrastructure of electricity and phones and things like that, that you can lead the world into the 22nd century and have health and wellness be the pillar of women's leadership in India. I'm very happy to figure out how to support that globally.
Thank you. And I would like to request the Minister to give us some closing remarks.
I don't think it's needed. I've been
something.
No, I think there's a lot of good ideas that I've heard. There is also an initiative I'm working on, which it's a little immature to talk about it. So at this forum, but closed door, then I think I'll request my team to sensitize and take your feedback on it. The last budget, our finance minister specifically, when she announced all the initiatives on skills, she said that we need to work out a scheme on women-led skilling, women's entrepreneurship. So the ministry is actively working things out.
So thank you everybody for joining us, and on behalf of Women Expanding Network, I'm really glad. Some of these connections I made it here in Davos. So I must tell you, I met Divya a year back.
I love your energy, how passionate you are.
I'm black people.
And Siddhi's from Jaipur, so we're both Jaipurians.
No, we all have to, you just have to have the intention to bring about the change, and that's what is needed. And Indian women are not, we are up there. We are the best. So on that note, thank you everybody.
Take one. I have my very, very last train.
Can you take a photograph?
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, please. Thank you. Okay,
Alright guys, our camera please.
So looking at this camera, please.
Everyone's squeezing in a little bit.
Sorry, everybody cutting. Sorry, no carrot. That's it. Please, Kate, look this way.
Sorry, one more. This is with mine, because I need to do mine.